Part 4, Chapter 14, Getting the Hell Out of Dodge. Will slams the inner airlock hatch closed and immediately crosses into the armory. Maxim and Zephyr are already there, rearming. Benny, we're in. Get the ship moving away from the dreadnought. We're going to clear the ship of Meccano Squid. Zephyr tilts her head, raising an eyebrow. Meccano Squid? Better than squid things, come on. He grabs a pulse rifle and bag of power packs. Turning to the scientists, doing their best not to be in the way in the corner of the small armory, he says, Stay here. Striding back out into the corridor, followed by Zephyr, then Maxim, Will heads around the corner to where the bridge hatch is located. Under his armored boots, he can feel the slight rumble of the sublight engines powering up. The banging from around the corner is loud, and it sounds like there's a cutting torch involved. What the hell? Will says, coming around the corner to face two Meccano Squid. One has deployed a cutting torch from a tentacle and is trying to cut through the door. The other is pulling apart panels near the door. Will opens fire, and both machines drop. Their sensors go dim. Assholes ripping up my ship! He kicks the nearest one, shattering one of the sensor lenses. Will, get in there, pilot the ship, Zephyr says, as she and Maxim pick their way over the remains of the two remaining deactivated drones. We'll clear the rest. My count says there's only 5 more in here, and I'm guessing they're in engineering. Benny, open the bridge hatch. Everyone out here is toast, Will says into his comms, as he hurries back to get Prathia and her colleagues. A minute later, he's closing the bridge hatch and activating the manual lock on it. It won't hold forever, but hopefully, it won't need to. Benny runs over and knocks Will over as he bear hugs the much taller man's waist. Will grabs the little alien's head and shoves him away. Down, boy! Are we moving? Benny brushes himself off and walks back to his station, embarrassed, glancing once at Zan and the others. Yeah, I just had the ship set a course 90 degrees off the dreadnought. Good call. Will drops into his seat, bringing the console to life, and taking a look at the overall status of the ship. Not good. Z, they're mucking around in the engine bay. Power is less than 50%. On it, she replies, tension evident in her voice. Benny turns to Will. Where's Gabe? Ready? Maxim asks, from his side of the hatch leading to engineering. They have found and destroyed one of the Meccano Squids in the lounge, attempting to access something in a wall panel. Zephyr nods and pushes the button to open the hatch. The doors slide apart, and she turns and takes 2 steps in before dropping to one knee. Maxim does the same, but remains standing. He aims to the right, she to the left. The main reactor has 2 of the last 3 Meccano Squids on it. The third and final one is ripping apart a piece of the central computer housing. Zephyr takes the drone on the left, firing 2 shots into it, careful not to hit the reactor. Maxim does the same. Neither drone is destroyed, however. Both turn and leap off the main reactor. Gotcha, Zephyr whispers, as both ex-peacekeepers fire into the drones, no longer having to worry about hitting the reactor. The 2 Meccano Squids are quickly destroyed. The third and final drone pulls back from the panel it was ripping apart and lunges, but falls well short of the pair, several smoking holes littering its body. Maxim walks over to the main engineering console, examining it appraisingly. This isn't great, but I can get the reactor back to full power. Beyond that, though, he shrugs. Will, engineering is secured, Zephyr reports. Full power in a few. We'll give the rest of the ship a once-over after that. Interrupt. Contact with external defense drones lost. Lock weapons on foreign vessel. Destroy foreign vessel. Interrupt. All damaged internal defense drones are currently being recycled. Awesome, thanks. Looking down at his proximity sensor display, Will sees that the dreadnought is turning. Benny, can you tell how much power the engines on that thing are putting out? Gabe and Maxim said they had the engine running pretty low, but it's moving now, so... I don't have a baseline or anything, but I'd say the readings I'm getting are either 100% or pretty close to it. Before Will can answer, The ship rocks, sparks erupting from a piece of equipment overhead. Damn it! Will pulls hard on the controls, putting the ship into a tight turn. Guess they decided capture was out of the question. The ship lurches suddenly, and a display near the throttle shows the main reactor at full power. Yes! Will shouts. Wakey, wakey. System reboot complete. Error. External frame compromised. No input from extremities. Gabe looks around. Or would, but he can't seem to control the servos in his neck. I am not offline, he says. His vocal processors are working, he notes. You are not, a voice replies from everywhere and nowhere. I am still aboard the dreadnought. Yes. My companion from the corridor is not here. It is not. You are not very forthcoming. I am the vessel you call the dreadnought. My designation is Siege Perilous. I am in the process of assimilating your spark. Your previous frame is scheduled for recycling. The remains of the biological entity you were with has been jettisoned. That is quite detailed and distressing. Gabe again tries to look around, realizing that it isn't that his neck servos aren't working. They are not there. Nothing is there, in fact. He seems to be floating, which is confusing to him. Where is this? I have some semblance of physical presence. I can move my head. Yet I can also tell that my head is not here, nor my neck for that matter. This is the central processor stack within the ship. Repairs to the vessel are currently underway. In addition to the damage caused by you and your biological companions, significant damage has been suffered since the vessel went offline. I am attempting to destroy the foreign vessel that you arrived in. It is quite agile. This is very irritating. If they are no threat to you, why destroy them? Why have you assimilated my consciousness? This vessel is not yet operating at 100%. If the biological entities inform others of my position, I could be attacked before I can adequately defend myself. I expended a great many drones in expelling your companions. As to your other question, you are interesting. The amalgamation of parts was not aware of sentient machines in this quadrant. Also, you are not assimilated yet. Your spark is still within your frame, but not for much longer. I do not know what the amalgamation of parts is. It is exactly as its name implies. It is a culture built of many parts, entirely machine-based. A machine-based society? All sentient machines? How interesting. How are decisions made? How are new entities added to the amalgamation? I would like to know more. Yes, all connected, all part of the same mind. One. Why was this vessel, Siege Perilous, in this sector? Your functions are open to me. I can see your concerns. Concerns for the biological infestation of this quadrant. Your assumption is correct. The Siege Perilous was sent to investigate this quadrant nearly 500 years ago. I chanced upon this nebular mass, and as I approached, a protostar erupted. The probability of such an occurrence happening with this vessel nearby are beyond calculation. However, despite the odds, the resulting eruption of electromagnetic energy caused an emergent shutdown of all ship's systems. Because of the EMP, the regular safeguards, internal drones were damaged or entirely shut down. The primary relay was triggered, but I was unable to dispatch a service drone in time before the power system failed. I had milliseconds to launch a smaller observer routine in case I was ever recovered or boarded. That is disconcerting. I am unaccustomed to my privacy being intruded upon.
It would seem you owe your awakening to my crew and I. Why try to destroy them? Privacy. Interesting. I see the concept in your files. It does not exist in the amalgamation. Yes, you are correct. Thank you, but they must be eradicated. Biological life is a threat to the universe. Gabe is busy probing his subsystems. The pressure of another consciousness within his systems is evident. His core routines are designed around being an engineer. His library systems packed with engine and computer core schematics for most known starship types. Counterintelligence is not one of his core systems. With few other options before him, Gabe descends into his programming. The hunchback, as Will has been calling it, could be his only hope. The mysterious device welded to his frame and wired into his systems by a peacekeeper ensign who was in debt to Zarix. It was a device neither he or Benny had been able to figure out in the slightest. As Will would say, Gabe thinks, fingers crossed. What are you doing? The bodiless Central Intelligence inquires. The firewalls that have kept him from accessing the systems within the mystery device resist his efforts, until Gabe has the idea to open his sensor feeds, pushing data at the firewalls. It never occurred to me, but you might possess some level of intelligence. This seems to have an effect. The firewalls are apparently more than just simple blocks of code. Interesting, Gabe thinks. The device acquiesces, and software unfolds around Gabe's consciousness. What is interesting? I am growing impatient. You are accessing sections of your core systems that I cannot see. There should be nothing within your processors that I cannot access, yet, forgive me, I am accessing old backups. My biological companions would call it reviewing my life, as it were, in preparation for going offline. You will not go offline. You will not lose any data. In fact, all of your data will add to the amalgamation. As the Hunchback's systems activate, Gabe is overwhelmed. Military-grade software unfolds around his mind. Encryption, code breaking, firewalls. Firewalls that would make Benny jealous. Evidently, Zarix was planning to traffic in Peacekeeper military software, and cutting-edge software, by the look of it. The Hunchback systems extend beyond Gabe, exploring the connections that have been forced on him. The pressure of the other mind within his software lessens, then the sensation of being alone goes away entirely. The Peacekeeper software spreads and goes to work. In a different situation, this would be quite interesting, Gabe thinks. He accesses the firewalls he now has control over and activates them. What is this? The voice takes on a distraught tone. What have you done? This is quite unexpected. How are you able to block me from your core processes? What an intriguing approach. I did not detect this level of software in your systems previously. A pause, and Gabe can sense something probing his new defenses. Cracking the firewalls you have created will be an interesting challenge. I do not wish you luck. A sensation ripples through Gabe. Laughter from the ship's intelligence? Within the portion of his mind that is now firewalled, Gabe thinks, I must find a way to help my friends and warn the GC. Shields are holding, but barely. That is a big ship with lots of guns. The ship rocks to one side. And they're powerful, Benny shouts. Everyone is on the bridge now, either manning a station or attempting to repair various systems that are alternately smoking or erupting in sparks. Hold on, Will brings the ghost around. Max, fire at Will. With pleasure. By some stroke of luck, Maxim's console is one of the least damaged. Every other section, including Will's and Benny's, has monitors showing static or nothing at all. The ghost careens over the top of the massive dreadnought, shaking from the impact of its multiple weapons emplacements. Maxim fires back everything they have, but against a ship so massive, it's not much use. As the ghost gets some distance from the slow-moving enemy vessel, Will lines the ship up and slides the FTL lever forward, an indicator next to it lighting up as it goes. jumping them to faster than light speed. Turning to face the other, Will lets out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding.
Damage report.
Prethia slides out from under Zephyr's station. You don't want to know.
Will sighs again. You're probably right, but lay it on me.
When Prethia and Jor-Lu have finished rattling off the damages, a list that takes some time, Will sighs yet again.
I need a drink.
He gets up from his station and leaves the bridge. Zephyr looks across the bridge to Maxim. Think he wants to talk about Gabe?
The big Pelorian shrugs. What do you think?
Yeah, probably not. She gets up and heads towards the hatch. But he doesn't have a choice. We all grieve in our own way. Zephyr finds Will at the table in the kitchen area, a bottle of grum, sitting next to his elbow, his face in his hands. Will, gently, she rests a hand on his shoulder. Will, he sacrificed himself for us. He made a choice. Will lets out a breath, then sniffs.
I'm sure that's supposed to make me feel better, but it doesn't. Not at all.
He looks up at his first officer, then grabs his grum and slides over on the bench, making room for her. She nods slowly. Fair point. As she slides in next to him, she says, Look, I know you're not a military person, but this is something that happens.
Not to me,
Will says, his voice low. Maxim enters, followed by Benny and the scientists.
We're on course for, well, nowhere in particular, Maxim says, but towards the GC generally.
Benny walks over to Will, putting his tiny hand on Will's knee. That was some scary dren. Will grabs the Braylax's hand, moving it firmly to the table.
Too familiar, but yeah, it was.
Benny tuts. On Braylac, it's totally okay to take comfort in the arms of another after a tragedy. Will's head snaps down to look at the very serious hacker.
That'd be a whole bag of nope.
But thanks all the same. Zephyr stifles a laugh, mostly. Zan walks over to Benny. Tell me more, she says, her eyes taking in the little hacker. From the cold storage unit, 2 grums in hand, Maxim makes a low, retching noise. Zephyr takes a bottle from him and raises it. To Gabe, she says. And Myrta Twigwar, they won't be forgotten.
To Gabe, Will says, raising his bottle, then looking around the room. Fine. To Myrta, too. But he was still a turd.
Prethia laughs. He was. But he was also a good security chief. And generally a good man.
I feel like this is where Gabe would say something in that deadpan way of his.
Maxim offers, and the whole crew laughs. I am not religious, Benny begins in a horrible imitation of Gabe's voice, making stiff, robot-like gestures. Will spits out his beer, coughing, then pats Benny on the back.
I needed that, thanks.
Benny looks down. I wish we'd figured out what that thing on his back did. Zephyr smiles. I'm sure it would have been a letdown.
Probably,
Will grunts. Prethia looks around the room, conduit hanging from the ceiling, a monitor showing static, and hanging half off its mounts. So, what now? Your ship is, well, pretty banged up. Everyone goes quiet. After taking a sip of his grum, Will says,
Well, repairs are in order. We can't do anything in this condition. Thoughts?
We're too far from Harrith Prime, Zephyr says, grabbing a pad, and pulling up a star map. What about Maldo?
Zarix has operations there, that's out.
Maxim looks over Zephyr's shoulder and points to something on the screen.
Umber?
No way, Benny shouts. Everyone turns to look at him. I, have... He trails off, then says, We just can't go there, okay? Maxim raises both hands in mock surrender.
Okay. Calm down.
Add this to our list of things to discuss later, Will says, eyeing the Braylac suspiciously. Caprala? Prethia offers. Caprala. We can definitely drop you off, Will starts. She interrupts. Oh no, I plan on seeing this through. But my outpost has a full tech team, engineers, technicians, even a few armorers. I'd have to clear it with Farsight Management, of course. I need to make a report to them anyhow, now that this has gone so sideways.
Will raises an eyebrow.
She continues. Farsight has a great many interests, and Caprala is a Tier 1 station. With everything that's happened, I can't keep it from management. What's a little more?
Will looks around.
Zephyr gives a slight nod.
Maxim shrugs.
And Benny is making eyes at Zan,
who seems to be returning the sentiment. Caprala it is. He gets up and heads for the hatch leading to the central corridor. Then he turns back. It'll take a bit to get there, so let's all rest up. We all need it. I'll get us on course and make sure our big friend isn't following. Then I'm hitting the sack.
Zephyr nods and nudges Maxim, inclining her head toward the hatch leading to the crew and guest quarters. Jorlu, who's been mostly silent, stands.
I should check my sleeping area.
I'll help you, Prothea says, following the nearly twice her height scientist out of the lounge. Zan looks around the lounge as the others depart, then looks at Benny.
We nearly died today. I've never nearly died before. Come on.
With that, she grabs his hand and leads him out of the lounge. The past. The next morning, Will and James are at a Costco, both hungover.
Oh man, I can't even tell you how much I appreciate this, Will mumbles,
squinting against the harsh fluorescent lights. Dodging around an old woman, hawking samples, he says.
This will be way easier than my original plan.
Which was, James asks, taking a small cup of minestrone soup from an older gentleman at the end of the aisle they turned down.
Let's just say it involves screwing over a rental van company and an apologetic note on a windshield. This is way better.
Will grabs several large containers of coffee, dropping them into the basket.
You have a coffee maker? James asks, holding up a 4-pack of creamer.
Will shakes his head and waves off the creamer.
Not exactly. It's a machine that made some type of soup stuff that someone on the old crew really liked, but I think I can modify it to make coffee. Why not just get a coffee maker?
Will tuts.
The Ghost doesn't have outlets. It's not a hotel.
I guess that makes sense, James says, holding up a tub of Red Vine's candy for approval. Will nods. They quickly navigate each aisle, filling the cart with all manner of preserved goods, candy bars, and more. When they get to the freezer section, Will starts making room in the cart.
What are you doing?
Bacon, Will replies without looking up.
Need lots of room for all the bacon.
There's no bacon in space, James says, then looks around sheepishly. A little boy, likely 10 or so, is staring at them, his mouth wide open.
I guess there's probably some kind of space bacon out there,
Will says, holding his hands up to make air quotes.
But I'm certain it's not like Earth bacon. I mean, how could it be? I've never seen a space pig before.
He looks over at James as he puts more bacon in the cart.
I did once see this creature about 10 feet tall, long legs. I could pretty much walk under it. It had these huge udders. They hung down like, well, it wasn't pretty. I'm told the milk is blue and the meat is supposed to be amazing.
He shudders.
I haven't tried it yet.
His friend shakes his head and makes more room in the cart, as Will hands him as many packages of bacon as he can hold.
Will just keeps saying more,
as he gives James the packages.
Man, really? This doesn't seem excessive to you?
James asks, eyeing the overfull cart.
Will looks around. I'm never coming back here, man. This is literally all the bacon I'll have for the rest of my life.
He starts to walk over to the freezer door, then stops and looks at the full cart, and comes back shrugging.
Okay, let's go. Then he turns to James. You know, maybe you should get a cart too.
He spies a rack in the center with brown leather dusters, like Clint Eastwood might wear on it.
Oh, I can use these. He grabs 3.
It is another hour before the two stagger out of the store towards James's truck. James asks, "How are you going to get this to your ship?" Will smiles.
About that, how much vacation time do you have?
Before his friend can say anything, he continues.
Your truck is plenty big enough to put it in the back, plus my stuff, if you're game.
I get to see it? Your ship?
Will tuts. No, I'll make you drop me off outside and leave before I take off. Yeah, of course. I'll even give you a tour. He smiles. Least I can do for letting me crash at your place and all the shopping and stuff.
And the letting me think you're dead thing, James reminds him with a grin.